There's a mountain on Earth that no one has ever climbed, not because it is the tallest, not because it is the most dangerous, and not because people haven't tried, but because, for reasons no one fully understands, every attempt has either failed or never truly began. Rising in near isolation with an almost unnatural symmetry, Mount Kailash stands completely untouched. No confirmed summit, no footprints at the top, no flags marking human presence, nothing. And in a world where humans have reached the deepest oceans, crossed frozen continents, and stood on the highest peaks, this should not exist, which raises a disturbing possibility. Maybe the problem isn't reaching the summit. Maybe it's something else entirely. At first, the explanation seems simple: restricted access, political control. Governments limit entry to sensitive areas all the time, but that explanation quickly starts to fall apart because climbers, especially elite climbers, don't just accept restrictions. They challenge them, they look for ways around them, they push boundaries. And yet, when it comes to Mount Kailash, they don't. There are no serious underground expeditions, no quiet attempts, no leaked plans. It's as if the climbing community itself has collectively stepped back. And that's unusual, because it suggests that what's stopping people isn't just law, it's something else, something less visible, something harder to define. Officially, climbing Mount Kailash is banned by the Chinese government, largely out of respect for its religious significance. But that alone doesn't explain the full picture. There are many sacred mountains around the world, and some of them are still climbed regularly. Even Everest, considered sacred in local traditions, is visited by thousands every year. Kailash is different. Here, the restriction isn't just enforced, it's respected, globally, quietly, without resistance. And that kind of universal agreement, especially in a world driven by exploration and achievement, is extremely rare. But the deeper you look, the stranger it becomes, because those who have approached Mount Kailash often describe something that doesn't fit into any normal category of danger. Not storms, not avalanches, not extreme terrain. Instead, they describe something internal, a growing sense of unease, a pressure that builds without a clear source. Experienced climbers, people trained to manage fear, have reported sudden, overwhelming discomfort. Some describe it as anxiety, others as something closer to dread. And in multiple cases, these individuals turned back not because they had to, but because they felt like they shouldn't continue. And then come the reports that are even harder to explain, because some visitors didn't just feel different near Kailash, they claimed their bodies were behaving differently, faster, unnaturally. There are accounts of hair and nails appearing to grow at accelerated rates, far beyond what would normally be expected in such a short period of time. Others describe a strange sensation that time itself is moving differently, days feeling compressed or moments stretching in ways they couldn't quite describe. These claims are often dismissed as exaggeration or the effects of altitude, but what makes them difficult to ignore is how consistent they are. And that's where the situation becomes more complicated. Because if time perception is being affected, what else is? Navigation, for example, becomes unexpectedly unreliable. Routes that seem straightforward on maps become confusing on the ground. Distances feel distorted. Landmarks that should guide direction seem less dependable. Some travelers have reported walking in what they believed to be a straight line, only to realize they had circled back to where they started. In an environment that is open and visible, this kind of disorientation shouldn't happen so easily, and yet it does. Even the tools designed to prevent this kind of confusion don't always work properly here. Compasses, one of the most basic and reliable instruments in navigation, have been reported to behave unpredictably near Kailash. Sudden shifts, unstable readings, in some cases complete failure. Magnetic anomalies can occur in certain regions, but what's unusual here is how inconsistent and localized these effects appear to be. And when both human perception and mechanical systems begin to fail in the same location, it becomes harder to dismiss it as coincidence. But then you look at the mountain itself, and that's when the mystery takes another turn. Because Mount Kailash doesn't resemble a typical mountain formed through chaotic geological processes. Its shape is too precise, too structured, almost geometric. From a distance, it appears as a near-perfect pyramid, rising sharply from the surrounding terrain, and that visual alone has been enough to raise questions for decades. The symmetry is difficult to ignore. Its faces align with unusual consistency. Its edges appear sharper than expected. Even the way snow settles on its surface often forms straight lines and defined patterns rather than random accumulation. These patterns shift with the seasons, but they consistently reinforce the mountain's geometric appearance. It doesn't just look natural, it looks organized. And that distinction is what leads many observers to question whether Kailash is truly just a natural formation. At a certain point, the question becomes unavoidable. Does Mount Kailash only appear artificial, or could it actually be something more? It's a controversial idea, but it's one that has been explored seriously, because when a structure displays consistent symmetry, unexplained environmental anomalies, and a long history of unusual human experiences, it begins to challenge classification. One of the most well-known theories comes from Russian researcher Ernst Moldashev. After studying the region, he proposed that Kailash might not be a mountain at all, but a massive ancient pyramid, a structure far older than any known human construction. And according to his theory, it is not isolated. It is part of a much larger system. Moldashev suggested that Mount Kailash sits at the center of a global network of pyramid-like structures, a kind of planetary grid, a system that may have once served a purpose, possibly related to energy, alignment, or something we don't yet understand. While this theory is widely criticized and lacks empirical evidence, it continues to attract attention for one simple reason. It attempts to connect multiple unexplained elements into a single framework. But perhaps even more intriguing is the idea that the mountain may not be solid all the way through. Some explorers have reported hearing unusual sounds near certain areas, low, echo-like vibrations, as if there are hollow spaces within. These accounts are difficult to verify, but they raise a possibility that is difficult to ignore, because if the mountain is hollow, then it is not behaving like a normal mountain at all. And this is where speculation begins to expand rapidly. If Kailash is not entirely natural, then what created it? Some suggest it could be the work of an advanced ancient civilization, one whose capabilities have been lost to history. Others go even further, proposing that it may have non-human origins, an artificial construct designed for a purpose that we no longer understand. These ideas are not proven, but they continue to exist because conventional explanations leave gaps. Long before these theories were proposed, ancient traditions already described Mount Kailash as something extraordinary. In multiple cultures, it is considered the axis mundi, the center of the world, a point where the physical and the spiritual intersect. And what makes this even more intriguing is that this idea appears independently across different civilizations, each describing the same location as uniquely important. Some interpretations take this concept further, suggesting that Kailash may function as a kind of energy center, a place where natural forces converge in ways that are not yet fully understood. This could, in theory, explain the magnetic disturbances, the psychological effects, and even the reported distortions in time perception. While there is no measurable proof of such an energy field, the consistency of the reports continues to raise questions. Kailash is also one of the most spiritually significant places on Earth. It is considered sacred by 4 major religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Bon. Each tradition assigns it deep meaning, often describing it as the dwelling place of divine beings or a gateway to higher states of existence. But what stands out is not just its importance, but how it is treated. Because unlike other sacred mountains, Kailash is not climbed. Pilgrims don't attempt to reach the summit. Instead, they walk around it in a ritual known as a kora. This journey is believed to bring spiritual transformation. And within these traditions, a consistent idea emerges. The mountain is not meant to be climbed, not because it is impossible, but because it is not supposed to be. Even modern technology appears to struggle in the region. Helicopter pilots have reported difficulty maintaining stable flight paths near the mountain. Instruments behave unpredictably. Navigation systems lose reliability. While these issues can be explained by altitude and environmental conditions, some accounts suggest inconsistencies that are harder to fully account for. And once again, a pattern begins to form. Human perception becomes unreliable. Mechanical systems behave irregularly. Orientation becomes unstable. And the closer one gets to the mountain, the more pronounced these effects seem to become. That repetition is difficult to ignore. At the base of Kailash, two lakes sit side by side, yet behave in completely opposite ways. One is calm, clear, and supports life. The other is dark, saline, and largely devoid of it. Same region, same environment, completely different outcomes. It's a striking visual contrast, and one that reinforces the idea that this area does not follow simple, predictable rules. Local legends add another layer to the mystery. Stories of unknown creatures, often described as Yeti-like, have been reported in the surrounding region for generations. While these accounts lack concrete evidence, they contribute to the overall sense that Kailash exists outside of normal expectations. And then there is the legend of Shambhala, a hidden civilization said to exist beyond ordinary perception. Described as advanced, protected, and inaccessible to most, some believe it lies somewhere beneath or near Mount Kailash. According to certain interpretations, Shambhala is more than just a myth. It may represent a repository of knowledge, or even a preserved gene pool, a safeguard designed to ensure the survival of humanity in the event of global catastrophe. It sounds extreme, but it follows the same pattern seen throughout this story. Kailash is always connected to something larger than itself. There are also reports of hidden cave systems around the mountain. Some claim these caves are inhabited by unknown beings. Descriptions vary, but often include features that don't fully match human characteristics. These accounts are difficult to verify, but their persistence keeps them from being completely dismissed. But perhaps the most unsettling idea is not physical at all. It is psychological. The concept of an invisible barrier, not something that physically blocks you, but something that makes you stop anyway. Explorers have described moments where they simply could not continue, not because of terrain, not because of exhaustion, but because something inside them refused. A sudden, overwhelming certainty that going further was not an option. And that kind of experience is difficult to explain using conventional logic. From a scientific perspective, many of these phenomena can be explained individually. Altitude affects cognition, harsh environments distort perception, geological processes can create symmetry. These explanations are valid, but even when combined, they don't fully account for everything reported at Kailash. Because the real mystery is not any single phenomenon, it's the pattern, the consistency, the way psychological, physical, and cultural elements all seem to point in the same direction, away from the summit. And that leads to the final question. Maybe the reason no one has ever climbed Mount Kailash is not because it's impossible, but because something, whether natural, psychological, or something we don't yet understand, doesn't allow it. And maybe the most unsettling possibility of all is that this was never meant to be a mountain we conquer.